Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Storytime with Indiana Holmes. We continue with our Agatha Christie novel, The Seven Dials Mystery. And tonight we begin with Chapter 21, The Recovery of the Formula. Der lieb Gott, said Herr Eberhard in a whisper. His face had gone chalky white. George turned a face of dignified reproach on Battle. Is this true, Battle? I left all arrangements in your hands. The rock-like quality of the superintendent showed out well. Not a muscle of his face moved. The best of us are defeated sometimes, sir, he said quietly. Then you mean the document is gone? But to everyone's intense surprise, Superintendent Battle shook his head. No, Mr. Lomax. It is not so bad as you think. Everything's all right. But you can't lay the credit for it at my door. You've got to thank this young lady. He indicated Lorraine, who stared at him in surprise. Battle stepped across to her and gently took the brown paper parcel, which she was still clutching mechanically. I think, Mr. Lomax, he said, that you will find what you want here. Sir Stanley Digby, quicker in action than George, snatched the package and tore it open. Investigating its contents eagerly, a sigh of relief escaped him, and he mopped his brow. Herr Eberhard fell upon the child of his brain and clasped it to his heart, whilst a torrent of German burst from him. Sir Stanley turned to Lorraine, shaking her warmly by the hand. My dear young lady, he said, you are infinitely obliged, or we are infinitely obliged to you, I am sure. Yes, indeed, said George, though He paused in some perplexity, staring at a young lady who was a total stranger to him. Lorraine looked appealingly at Jimmy, who came to the rescue. This is Miss Wade, said Jimmy, Gerald Wade's sister. Indeed, said George, shaking her warmly by the hand. My dear Miss Wade, I must express my deep gratitude to you for what you have done. I must confess that I do not quite see. He paused delicately, and 4 of the persons present felt the explanations were going to be fraught with much difficulty. Superintendent Battle came to the rescue. Perhaps we'd better not go into that just now, sir, he suggested tactfully. The efficient Mr. Bateman created a further diversion. Wouldn't it be wise for someone to see O'Rourke? Don't you think, sir, that a doctor had better be sent for? Of course, said George, of course. Most remiss of us not to have thought of it before. He looked towards Bill. Get Dr. Cartwright on the phone. Ask him to come. Just hint, if you can, that our discretion should be observed. Bill went off on his errand. I will come up with you, Digby, said George. Something possibly could be done. Measures should be, perhaps, taken whilst waiting the arrival of the doctor. He looked rather helplessly at Rupert Bateman. Efficiency always makes itself felt. It was Pongo who was really in charge of the situation. Shall I come up with you, sir? George accepted the offer with relief. Here, he felt, was someone on whom he could lean. He experienced that sense of complete trust in Mr. Bateman's efficiency, which came to all those who encountered that excellent young man. The 3 men left the room together, Lady Coote murmuring in deep, rich tones, the poor young fellow, perhaps I could do something, hurried after them. That's a very motherly woman, observed the superintendent thoughtfully. A very motherly woman, I wonder. 3 pairs of eyes looked at him inquiringly. I was wondering, said Superintendent Battle slowly, where Sir Oswald Coote may be. Oh, gasped Lorraine, do you think he's been murdered? Battle shook his head at her reproachfully. No need for anything so melodramatic, he said. No, I rather think... He paused, his head on one side, listening, one large hand raised to enjoin silence. In another minute they all heard what his sharper ears had been the first time he noticed, footsteps coming along the terrace outside. They rang out clearly with no kind of subterfuge about them. In another minute the window was blocked by a bulky figure which stood there regarding them, and who conveyed in an odd way a sense of dominating the situation. Sir Oswald, for it was he, looked slowly from one face to another. His keen eyes took in the details of the situation. Jimmy, with his roughly bandaged arm, Bundle in her somewhat anomalous attire, Lorraine a perfect stranger to him. His eyes came last to Superintendent Battle. He spoke sharply and crisply. "What's been happening here, officer?" "Attempted robbery, sir." "Attempted, eh? Thanks to this young lady, Miss Wade, the thieves failed to get away with it." "Ah," he said again, with scrutiny ended. "And now, officer, what about this?" He held out a small Mauser pistol, which he carried delicately by the butt. "Where did you find that, Sir Oswald?" On the lawn outside. I presume it must have been thrown down by one of the thieves as he took to his heels. I've held it carefully, as I thought you might wish to examine it for fingerprints." "You think of everything, Sir Oswald," said Battle. He took the pistol from the other, handing it with equal care, and laid it down on the table beside Jimmy's Colt. "And now, if you please," said Sir Oswald, "I should like to hear exactly what occurred." Superintendent Battle gave a brief resume of the events of that night. Sir Oswald frowned thoughtfully. "I understand," he said sharply, after wounding and disabling Mr. Thesiger, the man took to his heels and ran, throwing away the pistol as he did. What I cannot understand is why no one pursued him. "It wasn't until we heard Mr. Thesiger's story that we knew that there was anyone to pursue," remarked Superintendent Battle dryly. "You didn't, catch sight of him making off as you turned the corner of the terrace?" "No, I missed him by just about 40 seconds, I should say. There's no moon, and he'd be invisible as soon as he left the terrace. He must have leapt for it as soon as he'd fired the shot." Said Sir Oswald. "I still think that a search should have been organized. Someone else should have been posted. There are 3 of my men in the grounds," said Superintendent quietly. "Oh!" Sir Oswald seemed rather taken aback. "They were to hold and detain anyone attempting to leave the grounds. And yet they haven't done so? And yet they haven't done so," agreed Battle gravely. Sir Oswald looked at him as though something in the words puzzled him. He said sharply, "Are you telling me all that you know, Superintendent Battle?" "All that I know, yes, Sir Oswald. What I think is a different matter. Maybe I think some rather curious things, but until thinking's got you somewhere, it's no use talking about it." "And yet," said Sir Oswald slowly, "I should like to know what you think, Superintendent Battle. For one thing, sir, I think there's a lot too much ivy around this place. Excuse me, sir. You've got a bit on your coat, yes. A great deal too much ivy. It complicates things." Sir Oswald stared at him. But any reply might have contemplated making was arrested by the entrance of Rupert Bateman. "Oh, there you are, Sir Oswald. I'm so glad. Lady Coote was just discovered that you were missing, and she's been insisting upon it that you had been murdered by the thieves. I really think, Sir Oswald, that you had better come to her at once. She's terribly upset." "Maria is an incredibly foolish woman," said Sir Oswald. "Why should I be murdered? I come with you, Bateman." He left the room with his secretary. "That's a very efficient young man," said Battle, looking after them. "What's his name? Bateman?" Jimmy nodded. "Bateman, Rupert," he said. "Commonly known as Pongo. I was at school with him." "Were you? Now that's interesting. Mr. Thesiger, what was your opinion of him in those days?" "Oh, he was always the same sort of ass." "I shouldn't have thought," said Battle mildly, "that he was an ass." "Oh, you know what I mean. Of course, he wasn't really an ass. Tons of brains and always swatting at things, but deadly serious." No sense of humor. Ah, said Superintendent Battle, that's a pity. Gentlemen who have no sense of humor get to taking themselves too seriously, and that leads to mischief. I can't imagine Pongo getting into mischief, said Jimmy. He's done extremely well for himself so far. Dug himself in with old Coot, and looks like being a permanency in the job. Superintendent Battle said to Bundle. Yes, Lady Eileen. Don't you think it very odd that Sir Oswald didn't say what he was doing wandering about in the garden in the middle of the night? Ah, said Battle. Sir Oswald's a great man, and a great man always knows better than to explain unless an explanation is demanded. To rush into explanations and excuses is always a sign of weakness. Sir Oswald knows that as well as I do. He's not going to come in explaining and apologizing, not he. He just stalks in and hauls me over the coals, you know. He's a big man, Sir Oswald. Such a warm admiration sounded in the superintendent's tones that Bundle pursued the subject no further. And now, said Superintendent Battle, looking around with a slight twinkle in his eye, now that we're together and friendly-like, I should like to hear just how Miss Wade happened to arrive on the scene so pat. She ought to be ashamed of herself, said Jimmy, hoodwinking us all as she did. Why should I be kept out of it at all? Cried Lorraine passionately. I never meant to be. No, not the very first day in your rooms when both of you explained how the best thing for me to do was to stay quietly at home and keep out of danger. I didn't say anything, but I made up my mind then. I half suspected it, said Bundle. You were so surprisingly meek about it. I might have known you were up to something. I thought you were remarkably sensible, said Jimmy Thesiger. You would, Jimmy, my dear, said Lorraine. It was easy enough to deceive you. Thank you for these kind words, said Jimmy. Go on and don't mind me. When you rang up and said there might be danger, I was more determined than ever, went on Lorraine. I went to Harrod's and I bought a pistol. Here it is. She produced the dainty weapon, and Superintendent Battle took it from her and examined it. Quite a deadly little toy, Miss Wade, he said. Have you had much practice with it? None at all, said Lorraine, but I thought of it and I took it with me. Well, that would give me a comforting feeling. Quite so, said Battle gravely. My idea was to come over here and see what was going on. I left the car in the road and climbed through the hedge and came up to the terrace. I was just looking about me when, plop, something fell right at my feet. I picked it up and then looked to see where it could have come from. And then I saw the man climbing down the ivy, and I ran. Just so, said Battle. Now, Miss Wade, can you describe the man at all? The girl shook her head. It was too dark to see much. I think he was a big man, but that's about all. And now you, Mr. Thesiger, Battle turned to him. You struggled with the man. Can you tell me anything about him? He was a pretty hefty individual, that's all I can say. He gave a few hoarse whispers. That's when I had him by the throat. He said, "Let me go, Governor," something like that. An uneducated man, then. Yes, I suppose he was. He spoke like one. I still don't quite understand about the packet, said Lorraine. Why should he throw it down as he did? Was it because it hampered him climbing? No, said Battle. I've got an entirely different theory about that. That packet, Miss Wade, was deliberately thrown down to you, or so I believe. To me? Shall we say to the person the thief thought you were? This is getting very involved, said Jimmy. Mr. Thesiger, when you came into this room, did you switch on the light at all? Yes, and there was no one in the room. No one at all. But previously you thought you heard someone moving about down here? Yes. And then, after trying the window, you switched off the light again and locked the door. Superintendent Battle looked slowly round him. His glance was arrested by a big screen of Spanish leather which stood near one of the bookcases. Brusquely he strode across the room and looked behind it. He uttered a sharp yelp, which brought the three young people quickly to his side. Huddled on the floor in a dead faint lay Countess Radetzky. Chapter 22. The Countess Radetzky's Story. The Countess returned to consciousness and was very different from that of Jimmy Thesiger. It was more of a prolonged and infinitely more artistic awakening. Artistic was Bundle's word. She had been zealous in her ministrations, largely consisting of the application of cold water, and the Countess had instantly responded, passing a white, bewildered hand across her brow and murmuring faintly. It was at this point that Bill, at last relieved from his duties with telephone and doctors, had come bustling into the room and had instantly proceeded to make, in Bundle's opinion, a most regrettable idiot of himself. He had hung over the Countess with a concerned and anxious face and had addressed a series of singularly idiotic remarks to her. "I say, Countess, it's all right. It's all right. Don't try to talk. It's bad for you. Just lie still. You'll be all right in a minute. It'll come back to you. Don't say anything till you're quite right. Take your time. Just lie there, lie still, and close your eyes. You'll remember everything in a minute. Have another sip of water. Have some brandy. That's the stuff, don't you think? Bundle. That brandy. Get the brandy." "For God's sake, Bill, leave her alone," said Bundle crossly. "She'll be all right." And with an expert hand, she flipped a good deal of cold water onto the exquisite makeup of the Countess's face. The Countess flinched and sat up. She looked considerably more wide awake. "Ah," she murmured, "I am here. Yes, I am here." "Take your time," said Bill. "Don't talk till you feel quite all right again." The Countess drew the folds of a very transparent negligee closer round her. "It is coming back to me," she murmured. "Yes, it is coming back." She looked at the little crowd grouped around her. Perhaps something in the attentive faces struck her unsympathetically. In any case, she smiled deliberately up at one face which clearly displayed a very opposite emotion. "Ah, my big Englishman," she said very softly, "do not distress yourself. All is well with me." "Oh, I say, but are you sure?" demanded Bill anxiously. "Quite sure." She smiled at him reassuringly. "We Hungarians, we have nerves of steel." A look of intense relief passed over Bill's face. A fatuous look settled down there instead, a look which made Bundle earnestly long to kick him. "Have some water," she said coldly. The Countess refused water. Jimmy, kindlier to beauty in distress, suggested a cocktail. The Countess reacted favorably to this suggestion. When she had swallowed it, she looked round once more, and this time with a livelier eye. "Tell me what has happened," she demanded briskly. "We were hoping you might be able to tell us that," said Superintendent Battle. The Countess looked at him sharply. She seemed to become aware of the big, quiet man for the first time. "I went to your room," said Bundle. "The bed hadn't been slept in. And you weren't there." She paused, looking accusingly at the Countess. The latter closed her eyes and nodded her head slowly. Yes, I remember it now. Oh, it was horrible," she shuddered. "Do you want me to tell you?" Superintendent Battle said, "If you please," at the same moment that Bill said, "Not if you don't feel up to it." The Countess looked from one to the other, but the quiet, masterful eye of the Superintendent Battle won the game. "I could not sleep," began the Countess. "The house, it oppressed me. I was all, as you say, on wires, the cat on the hot bricks. I knew that in that state I was or it was useless to think of going to bed. I walked about my room. I read, but the books placed there did not interest me greatly. I thought I would come down here and find something more absorbing. Very natural, said Bill. Very often done, I believe, said Battle. So as soon as the idea occurred to me, I left my room and came down. The house was very still. Excuse me, interrupted the superintendent, but can you give me an idea of the time when this occurred? I never know the time, said the Countess superbly, and swept on with her story. The house was very quiet. One could even hear the little mouse run, if there had been one. I come down the stairs very quietly. Very quietly? Naturally. I do not want to disturb the household, said the Countess reproachfully. I come in here. I go into this corner and I search the shelves for a suitable book, having of course switched on the light. No, I did not switch on the light. I had, you see, my little electric torch with me. With that, I scanned the shelves. Ah, said the superintendent. Suddenly, continued the Countess dramatically, I hear something. A stealthy sound, a muffled footstep. I switch out my torch and listen. The footsteps draw nearer, stealthy, horrible footsteps. I shrink behind the screen. In another minute the door opens and the light is switched on, and the man, the burglar, is in the room. Yes, but I say, began Mr. Thesiger. A large-sized foot pressed his, and realizing the superintendent Battle was giving him a hint, Jimmy shut up. I nearly died of fear, continued the Countess. I tried not to breathe. The man waited for a minute, listening. Then, still, with that horrible, stealthy tread. Again Jimmy opened his mouth to protest and again shut it. He crossed to the window and peered out. He remained there for a minute or two. Then he recrossed the room and turned out the lights again, locking the door. I am terrified. He is in the room, moving stealthily about in the dark. Ah, it is horrible. Suppose he should come up to me in the dark. In another minute I hear him again by the window. Then silence. I hope that perhaps he may have gone out that way. As the minutes pass and I hear no further sound, I am almost sure that he has done so. Indeed, I am in the very act of switching my torch on and investigating when, presto macizo, it all begins. Yes. Ah, but it was terrible. Never, never shall I forget. Two men trying to murder each other. Oh, it was horrible. They reeled about the room, and furniture crashed in every direction. I thought, too, that I heard a woman scream, but that was not in the room. It was outside somewhere. The criminal had a hoarse voice. He croaked rather than spoke. He kept saying, "Let me go, let me go." The other man was a gentleman. He had a cultured English voice. Jimmy looked gratified. He swore mostly, continued the Countess. Clearly a gentleman, said Superintendent Battle. And then, continued the Countess, a flash and a shot. The bullet hit the bookcase beside me. I suppose I must have fainted. She looked up at Bill. He took her hand and patted it. You poor dear, he said. How rotten for you. Silly idiot, thought Bundle. Superintendent Battle had moved on swift, noiseless, feet over to the bookcase. A little to the right of the screen, he bent down, searching. Presently, he stopped and picked something up. It wasn't a bullet, Countess, he said. It was the shell of the cartridge where you were standing when you fired. Mr. Thesiger? Jimmy took up a position by the window. As nearly as I can say, about there. Superintendent Battle placed himself in the same spot. That's right, he agreed. The empty shell would throw right rear. It's a .45. I don't wonder the Countess thought it was a bullet in the dark. It hit the bookcase about a foot from her. The bullet itself grazed the window, and we'll find it outside tomorrow, unless your assailant happens to be carrying it about in him. Jimmy shook his head regretfully. Leopold, I fear, did not cover himself with glory, he remarked sadly. The Countess was looking at him with most flattering attention. Your arm, she exclaimed. It's all tied up. Was it you then? Jimmy made her a mock bow. "I'm so glad I've got a cultured English voice," he said, "and I can assure you that I wouldn't have dreamed of using that language. I did, if I had any suspicion that a lady was present. I did not understand all of it," the Countess hastened to explain, "although I had an English governess when I was young." "It isn't the sort of thing she'd likely teach you," agreed Jimmy. "Kept you busy with your uncle's pin and the umbrella of the gardener's niece. I know the sort of stuff." "But what has happened?" asked the Countess. That is what I want to know. I demand to know what has happened." There was a moment of silence whilst everybody looked at Superintendent Battle. "It's very simple," said Battle mildly. "Attempted robbery. Some political papers stolen from Sir Digby's drawer, I think. The thieves nearly got away with them, but thanks to this young lady," he indicated Lorraine, "they didn't." The Countess flashed a glance at the girl, rather an odd glance. "Indeed," she said coldly. "A very fortunate coincidence that she happened to be there," said Superintendent Battle, smiling. The Countess gave a little sigh and half-closed eyes again. "It is absurd, but I still feel extremely faint," she murmured. "Of course you do," cried Bill. "Let me help you up to your room. Bundle will come with you." "It is very kind of Lady Eileen," said the Countess, "but I should prefer to be alone. I am really quite all right. Perhaps you will just help me up the stairs." She rose to her feet, accepted Bill's arm, and, leaning heavily on it, went out of the room. Bundle followed as far as the hall, but the Countess, reiterating her assurance, with some tartness, that she was quite all right, she did not accompany them upstairs. But as she stood watching the Countess's graceful form, supported by Bill, slowly mounting the stairway, she stiffened suddenly to acute attention. The Countess's negligee, as previously mentioned, was thin, a mere veil of orange chiffon. Through it, Bundle saw distinctly, below the right shoulder, a small black mole. With a gasp, Bundle swung impetuously round to where Superintendent Battle was just emerging from the library. Jimmy and Lorraine had preceded him. "There," said Battle. "I fastened the window, and there will be a man on duty outside. And I'll lock this door and take the key. In the morning, we'll do what the French call reconstruct the crime. Yes, Lady Eileen, what is it?" "Superintendent Battle, I must speak to you at once." "Why, certainly, George Lomax suddenly appeared, Dr. Cartwright by his side. "Ah, there you are, Battle. You will be relieved to hear that there is nothing seriously wrong with O'Rourke." "I never thought there would be much wrong with Mr. O'Rourke," said Battle. "He's had a strong hypnotic administered to him," said the doctor. "He'll wake up perfectly all right in the morning. Perhaps a bit of a head, perhaps not. Now then, young man, let's look at this bullet wound of yours." "Come on, nurse," said Jimmy to Lorraine. "Come and hold the basin or my hand. Witness a strong man's agony. You know the stunt." Jimmy, Lorraine, and the doctor went off together. Bundle continued to throw agonizing glances in the direction of Superintendent Battle, who had been buttonholed by George. The superintendent waited patiently till a pause occurred in George's loquacity. He then swiftly took advantage of it. "I wonder, sir, if I might have a word privately with Sir Stanley in the little study at the inn there." "Certainly," said George. "Certainly. I'll go and fetch him at once." He hurried off upstairs. Battle drew Bundle swiftly into the drawing-room and shut the door. "Now, Lady Eileen, what is it?" "I'll tell you as quickly as I can, but it's rather long and complicated." As concisely as she could, Bundle related her introduction to the Seven Dials Club and her subsequent adventures there. When she had finished, Superintendent Battle drew a long breath. For once, his facial woodness was laid aside. "Remarkable," he said. "Remarkable. I wouldn't have believed it possible, even for you. Lady Eileen, I ought to have known better. But you did give me a hint Superintendent Battle, you told me to ask Bill Eversley. It's dangerous to give people like you a hint, Lady Eileen. I never dreamt of you going to the lengths you have. Well, it's all right, Superintendent Battle. My death doesn't lie at your door. Not yet it doesn't, said Battle grimly. He stood as though in thought, turning things over in his mind. What Mr. Thesiger was about, letting you run into danger like that. I can't think, he said presently. He didn't know till afterwards, said Bundle. I'm not a complete mug, said Superintendent Battle. And anyway, he's got his hands full looking after Mr. Wade. Is that so? Said Superintendent Battle. Ah. He twinkled a little. I shall have to detail Mr. Eversley to look after you, said Lady Eileen. Bill, said Bundle contemptuously. But, Superintendent Battle, you haven't heard the end of my story. The woman saw there, Anna, number 1, yes, number 1, is the Countess Radetzky. And rapidly she went on to describe her recognition of the mole. To her surprise, the superintendent hemmed and hawed. A mole isn't much to go upon, said Lady Eileen. 2 women might have an identical mole very easily. You must remember that the Countess Radetzky is a very well-known figure in Hungary. Then this isn't the real Countess Radetzky? I tell you, I am sure this is the same woman I saw there. And look at her tonight. The way we found her. I don't believe she ever fainted at all. Oh, I shouldn't say that, Lady Eileen. The empty shell striking the bookcase, besides her, might have frightened any woman half out of her wits. But what was she doing there anyway? One doesn't come down to look for a book with an electric torch. Battle scratched his cheek. He seemed unwilling to speak. He began to pace up and down the room, as though making up his mind. At last he turned to the girl. See here, Lady Eileen, I'm going to trust you. The Countess's conduct is suspicious. I know that as well as you do. It's very suspicious. But we've got to go carefully. There mustn't be any unpleasantness with the embassies. One has got to be sure. I see. If you were sure, there's something else. During the war, Lady Eileen, there was a great outcry about German spies being left at large. Busybodies wrote letters to the papers about it. We paid no attention. Hard words didn't hurt us. The small fry were left alone. Why? Because through them, sooner or later, we got the big fellow, the man at the top. You mean... Don't bother about what I mean, Lady Eileen. But remember this. I know all about the Countess, and I want her let alone. And now, added Superintendent Battle ruefully, I've got to think of something to say to Sir Stanley Digby. Chapter 23. Superintendent Battle in Charge. It was 10 o'clock on the following morning. The sun poured in through the windows of the library, where Superintendent Battle had been at work since 6. On a summons from him, George Lomax, Sir Oswald Coote, and Jimmy Thesiger had just joined him. Having repaired the fatigues of the night with a substantial breakfast, Jimmy's arm was in a sling, but he bore a little other trace of the night's affray. The superintendent eyed all 3 of them benevolently, somewhat with a kind of air of a kindly curator explaining a museum to little boys. On the table beside him were various objects neatly labeled. Amongst them, Jimmy recognized Leopold. Ah, Superintendent, said George, I have been anxious to know how you have progressed. Have you caught the man? He'll take a lot of catching, he will, said the superintendent easily. His failure in that respect did not appear to rankle him. George Lomax did not look particularly well pleased. He detested levity of any kind. I've got everything taped out pretty clearly, went on the detective. He took up 2 objects from the table. Here we've got 2 bullets. The largest is a .45, fired from Mr. Thesiger's Colt automatic. Grazed the window sash and found it embedded in the trunk of that cedar tree. This little fellow was fired from the Mauser, a 25. After passing through Mr. Thesiger's arm, it embedded itself in this armchair here. As for the pistol itself, well, Sir Oswald eagerly. Any fingerprints? Battle shook his head. The man who handled it wore gloves, he said slowly. A pity, said Sir Oswald. A man who knew his business would wear gloves. Am I right in thinking that, Sir Oswald? That you found this pistol just about 20 yards from the bottom of the steps leading to the terrace? Sir Oswald stepped to the window. Yes, almost exactly, I should say. I don't want to find fault, but it would have been wiser on your part, sir, to have left it exactly as you found it. I am sorry, said Sir Oswald stiffly. Oh, it doesn't matter. I've been able to reconstruct things. There were your footprints, you see, leading up from the bottom of the garden, and a place where you had obviously stopped and stooped down, and a kind of dint in the grass, which was highly suggestive. By the way, what was your theory of the pistol being there? I presumed that it had been dropped by the man in his flight. Battle shook his head. Not dropped, Sir Oswald. There are 2 points against that. It began with, there is only one set of footprints crossing the line. Just there. Your own. I see, Sir Oswald said thoughtfully. Can you be sure of that, Battle? Put in George. Quite sure, sir. There is one other set of tracks crossing the line, Miss Wade's, but they are a good deal farther to the left. He paused and then went on. And there's the dint in the ground. The pistol must have struck the ground with some force. It all points to having been thrown. Well, why not? Said Sir Oswald. Say the man fled down the path to the left, he'd have to leave no footprints on the path, and he'd hurl the pistol away from him in the middle of the lawn, eh, Lomax? George agreed by a nod of the head. It's true that he'd leave no footprints on the path, said Battle, but from the shape of the dint and the way the turf was cut, I don't think the pistol was thrown from that direction. I think it was thrown from the terrace here. Very likely, said Sir Oswald. Doesn't matter, Superintendent. Ah, yes, Battle, broke in George. It is, strictly relevant, is it? Perhaps not, Mr. Lomax, but we like to get things just so, you know. I wonder now if one of your gentlemen would take his pistol and throw it. You, Sir Oswald, that's very kind. Stand here in the window. Now fling it into the middle of the lawn. Sir Oswald complied, sending the pistol flying through the air with a powerful sweep of his arm. Jimmy Thesiger drew near with breathless interest. The superintendent lumbered off like a well-trained retriever. He reappeared with a beaming face. That's it, sir. Just the same kind of mark, although, by the way, you sent it a good 10 yards farther. Then you are a very powerfully built man, aren't you, Sir Oswald? Excuse me, I thought I heard someone at the door. The superintendent's ears must have been very much sharper than anyone else's. Nobody else had heard a sound. But Superintendent Battle was proved right, for Lady Coote stood outside, a medicine glass in her hand. Your medicine, Oswald, she said, advancing into the room. You forgot it after breakfast. I'm very busy, Maria, said Sir Oswald. I don't want my medicine. You would never take it if it wasn't for me, said his wife serenely, advancing upon him. You are just like a naughty little boy. Drink it up now. And meekly, obediently, the great steel magnet drank it up. Lady Coote smiled sadly and sweetly at every direction. Am I interrupting you? Are you very busy? Oh, look at those revolvers, nasty, noisy, murdering things. To think, Oswald, that you might have been shot by burglars last night. You must have been alarmed when you found he was missing, Lady Coote said. Lady Coote, said Battle. I didn't think at first, confessed Lady Coote. This poor boy here, she indicated Jimmy, being shot and everything so dreadful, but so exciting. Wasn't until Mr. Bateman asked me where Sir Oswald was that I remembered that he'd gone out a half hour before our stroll. Sleepless, eh, Sir Oswald? Asked Battle. I am usually an excellent sleeper, said Sir Oswald, but I must confess that last night I felt unusually restless. I thought the night air would bring me some good. You came out through this window, I suppose. Was it his fancy, or did Sir Oswald hesitate for a moment before replying? Yes. In your pumps, too, said Lady Coote, instead of putting thick shoes on. What would you do without me to look after you? She shook her head sadly. I think, Maria, if you don't mind leaving us, we still have a lot to discuss. I know, dear. I'm just going. Lady Coote withdrew, carrying the empty medicine glass as though it were a goblet, out of which she drank just the administered death portion. Or was it a potion? Oh, yes, out of which she had just administered a death potion. Well, Battle, said George Lomax, it seems clear enough. Yes, perfectly clear. The man fires a shot, disabling Mr. Thesiger, flings away the weapon, runs along the terrace and down the gravel path. Of course, she didn't actually administer a death potion, but she carried it as if she did. Where he ought to have been caught by the men, put Battle. Yes. He walked down the gravel path, and he should have been encountering the men there. Your men, if I may say so, Battle, seem to have been singularly remiss. They didn't see Miss Wade come in. If they could miss her coming in, they could easily miss the thief going out. Superintendent Battle opened his mouth to speak, then seemed to think better of it. Jimmy Thesiger looked at him curiously. He would have given a lot to know just what the superintendent had on his mind. Must have been a champion runner, was all Scotland Yard man contented himself with saying. How do you mean, Battle? Just what I say, Mr. Lomax. I was round the corner of the terrace myself, not 50 seconds after the shot was fired, and for a man to run all that distance towards me and get around the corner of the path before I appeared round the side of the house, well, I say he must have been a champion runner. I am at a loss to understand you, Battle. You have some idea of your own, which I have not grasped. You say the man did not go across the lawn, and now you hint. What exactly do you hint at? The man did not go down the path. Then, in your opinion, where did he go? For answer, Superintendent Battle jerked an eloquent thumb upwards. Ah, said George. The superintendent jerked harder than ever. George raised his head and looked at the ceiling. Up there, said Battle. Up the ivy again. Nonsense, Superintendent. What are you suggesting? What? It's impossible. Not at all impossible, sir. He'd done it once. He could do it twice. I don't mean impossible in that sense, but if the man wanted to escape, he'd never bolt back into the house. Safest place for him, Mr. Lomax. But Mr. O'Rourke's door was still locked on the inside when we came to him. And how did you get to him? Through Sir Stanley's room. That's the way our man went. Lady Eileen tells me she saw the doorknob of Mr. O'Rourke's door move. That's when our friend was up there the first time. I suspect the key was under Mr. O'Rourke's pillow, but his exit is clear enough. The second time through the communicating pass-through door, and through Sir Stanley's room, which, of course, was empty. Like everyone else, Sir Stanley is rushing downstairs to the library. Our man's got a clear course. And where did he go? Superintendent Battle shrugged his burly shoulders and became evasive. Plenty of ways open. Into an empty room on the other side of the house, And down the ivy again, out through a side door, or, possibly, if it was an inside job, he, well, stayed in the house. George looked at him in shocked surprise. Really, Battle, I should feel it very deeply if one of my servants are I have the most perfect reliance on them. It would distress me very much to have to suspect. Nobody's asking you to suspect anyone, Mr. Lomax. I'm just putting all the possibilities before you. The servants may be all right. Probably are. You have disturbed me, Sir George. You have disturbed me greatly. His eyes appeared more protuberant than ever. To distract him, Jimmy poked delicately at a curiously blackened object on the table. "What's this?" he asked. "That's Exhibit B," said Battle. "That last of our lot. It is, or rather it has been, a glove." He picked it up, the charred relic, and manipulated it with pride. "Where did you find it?" asked Sir Oswald. Battle jerked his head over his shoulder. "In the grate, nearly burnt, but not quite. Queer, looks as though it had been chewed by a dog." "It might possibly be Miss Wade's," suggested Jimmy. "She has several dogs." The superintendent shook his head. "This isn't the lady's glove. No, not even the large kind of loose gloves ladies wear nowadays. It fit on, sir, a moment." He adjusted the blackened object over Jimmy's hand. "You see, it's large even for you." "Did you attach importance to this discovery?" inquired Sir Oswald coldly. "You never know, Sir Oswald, what's going to be important or what isn't." There was a sharp tap on the door, and Bundle entered. "Tim, so sorry," she said apologetically, "but Father has just rung up. He says I must come home because everybody is worrying him." She paused. "Yes, my dear Arline," said George encouragingly, perceiving there was more to come. "I wouldn't have interrupted you, only that I thought it might have perhaps had something to do with all this. You see, what has upset Father is that one of our footmen is missing. He went out last night and hasn't come back." "What is the man's name?" It was Sir Oswald who took up the cross-examination. "John Bauer? An Englishman?" "I believe he calls himself a Swiss, but I think he's German. He speaks English perfectly, though." "Ah!" Sir Oswald knew and drew in his breath with a long, satisfied hiss. "And he has been at Chimneys how long?" "Just under a month." Sir Oswald turned to the other two. "Here's our missing man. You know, Lomax, as well as I do, that several foreign governments are after that thing." "I remember the man now, perfectly tall, well-drilled fellow. Came about a fortnight before we left. A clever move. Any new servants here would be closely scrutinized, but at Chimneys, 5 miles away." He did not finish the sentence. "You think that the plan was laid so long beforehand?" "Why not? There are millions in that formula, Lomax. Doubtless Bauer had hoped to get access to my private papers at Chimneys and learn something of forthcoming arrangements for them. It seems likely that he may have had an accomplice in this house, someone who put him wise to the list, or I should say to the lie, or to the lay of the land, and who saw the adopting of O'Rourke. No, not the adopting, who saw to the doping of O'Rourke. But Bauer was the man Miss Wade saw climbing down the ivy, the big, powerful man." He turned to Superintendent Battle. "Bauer was your younger man, Superintendent, and somehow or other you let him slip through your fingers." Okay, my friends, I think that is all for tonight. I hope you're enjoying the story. We're getting a little bit closer as Inspector Battle starts to prod and poke and lay out his theories and the knowledge he already has. Until tomorrow, this has been Indiana Holmes. Love to you all. Good night.
Please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications button. Thank you very much.